Nikita, man, it's really good to have you back.
Yeah, thank you, man. I'm
Dude,
glad to be back. It's been a while.
it's been almost 3 years. Can you believe that shit?
Whoa,
Almost 3 years
really?
since you were here. Yeah, it was
Did
2021.
you did you research that?
Well, I can easily type Overcrest Oilstainlab and see
Okay,
exactly when the episode came out. It wasn't too bad. Um,
three
and
years.
that episode, we went through like kind of like your guys' history and where you came from. And, if anybody wants to hear all that, they can go listen to it. It's a good episode. Also, happy birthday, by the way.
Thank you, thank you.
I
I'm
appreciate you
I'm old
spending your
now.
birthday with me. I'm not. What is old? Define old. What number is there?
Well, how old do you think I am?
Oh
Let's
no,
play
you
the
can't
guessing
do
game.
that. That's rude. That's ruder than asking somebody how old they are.
36. Just turned
36.
36. My
Okay.
brother and I. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's not too bad. Once everything starts hurting, then you start paying attention. Yeah, that's when it really starts to hit. Is you're like, man, where did that pain come from? It's like, oh yeah, I fell down like 3 weeks ago and it hasn't healed. So that's
right.
yeah, you've
It's
got
getting
that
there.
to look forward to. Yeah, yeah. So it's been like almost 3 years, and it's been interesting watching Oilstainlab evolve. Right. It's been cool seeing what you guys have done, which is develop a brand. I think has been really really cool. The car came out, and then I've seen like this brand of Oilstainlab start to grow, and the ethos and the vibe that you guys are kind of creating is really really interesting. What's been going on with you guys? What's new? I saw the Top Gear thing. That's freaking dope. Who doesn't dream of like collaborating with Top Gear someday?
Yeah. Gosh, so much has changed 3 years ago. It's almost hard to pinpoint where half 11, where it was staying love was like so long ago. Um, yeah, I mean,
I don't know. Was it
23 was
done?
a crazy year. It
Was it
was what?
done? Was half 11 even done when we last talked? I think it was at
I don't
like,
think it ran.
yeah, it's been that long. Okay, sorry. Continue. 2023 was crazy. Go ahead.
Yeah. Yeah, no, 23 has definitely been like a year. It's been a crazy year. Cars traveled a lot. I think it's more finished now. It's got the roof on it. So it's like, it's kind of, you know, it's emerged from its cocoon and it's become this butterfly, let's say. And
Yeah.
yeah, it's flying around the country and yeah, driving across the country. And yeah, so I mean, like you said, I think, we always had a vision for where the brand would be and what it could be. And we've just sort of slowly developed it. But dude, there's like, you can have a plan and then it just all goes out the window and you see like, yeah, so we've pivoted, we've moved around. We're not some crazy geniuses. We're just, it's like still very much a side project and we're just letting it grow naturally and, with the community and everything. So
What was
yeah.
the biggest thing that you didn't expect that's caused you to pivot and change maybe what you were thinking or what you were doing or what it could be?
Gosh, I mean, the entire project of Half 11 was never supposed to be like anything commercial or, to make a car for other people or anything. And it was just really supposed to be a fun thing for us to tell like a unique story, right? That was the genesis of it. And the whole, everything that's happened with that car and the people have reached out and everything, it's pivoted us into a very different direction to where we've sort of moved away from being the design consultancy. I think that's probably what we were talking about 3 years ago a lot.
Yep. Yep.
And now we're moving into a very different area, almost boutique building things, let's say. So yeah, it's that's been the biggest pivot and the biggest, I think my brother and I never envisioned being like a small car company, but it may just happen.
So you have like dudes calling you up. They want like their own. Do they want you to design like a vision of like a new thing, or do they want a half 11? Like, what are these people asking for when they call you up or DM
Yeah, I
you or
mean,
whatever?
yeah. It's been a lot of people that just want a half 11, and that's when we kind of have to tell them like, hey, listen, like, trust me, you
Are you
don't.
sure?
Also, it's not for sale. Despite like all the websites that throw it up for sale, it's not for sale.
What is that? I saw that
um,
today. It's like, yeah, you can have this for $600,000 or whatever. I'm like, I didn't know it was for sale. Where's this coming from?
yeah, no, we were surprised too when people started sending it to us, because yeah, no one really ever talked to us about those articles or anything. It's like, yeah, there's Rob Report, there's all these like big websites, and we're like, where did you guys get this from? That was all post SEMA. But Yeah, where's the question? Sorry, I totally
No,
spaced.
that's okay. It's kind of meandering. It's just like the growth of the brand and everything, and where you guys pivoted from. I think it's interesting that people are wanting you to build cars. And if they want a half 11, I think that they maybe think they want one, but it's got to be a pretty violent thing that most people don't understand what driving something like that is like, right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, for us, it was like a tribute to the 70s, but it took special people to drive that, right? And they were professional drivers, Can-Am racers. I mean, true heroes, right? They were risking their lives every time they went and raced. And, I don't think the world's really ready to sell cars like that or to have people that aren't experienced or trained to drive things like that. I think that would open up a huge legal quagmire, first of all.
Well, we
And
are
then
giving
second of all,
people giant SUVs that go 0 to 60 in 2 seconds, right?
yeah, but pretty much no matter what, you'll be safe inside the SUV. The people outside the
It's true.
SUV won't be. But
Yeah, yeah, maybe not.
um, I mean, yeah, weight is like the bane of our existence. We hate how big and heavy cars are, but that's a side topic that we could discuss for hours. But Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people don't really understand. Yeah, how, like what you said, how extreme it is to drive that thing, and you have to be 5'7". I mean, it was built for us. The car's
Yeah,
38
I'm
inches
five
tall.
seven. Let's go. Let's
Yeah, you'll
go.
fit. We'll fly in. um, it's 38 inches tall, so it's 2 inches lower than the original GT40 Le Mans racers. It's an inch taller than a 917. I mean, there's no comfort. It's not as bad as you think it is, because like you can lope around at like 1500 rpm and be okay, but there's no AC. You have to climb in through the window, basically. It's you got to be in the mood to like drive it. It's not something casual.
Yeah,
So but it's a dream come true for us. It's the absolute like pinnacle, I think, of kind of sacrifice or making sure that the driving experience is special. Like it leaves a memory every time you do it, and that's what we wanted. So
yeah, for sure. It's going to take a special type of person, but I think there's people out there. Well, the majority of people couldn't handle it, or they think they want something like that, but they really don't. Maybe they want to have it, but not drive it. They want to cosplay that they're the person that could be in that car. They think they want to be James Hunt, but they maybe real. I don't know. Being James Hunt would be pretty cool, but like they think that's what they want, but they really don't. But I think there's people out there that would love to just get something like this or have you design something like this and really use it. I think there's people out there that would.
that's yeah. So I mean, we're working on effectively what would be a production car of that, but it's very different, very very different. The spirit of that, the half 11 will live on, but it'll be a thoroughly modern project, or like a thoroughly modern approach. So it'll have like big doors, it'll have air conditioning, it'll have the basic necessities, I think, that modern day life has taught people they need. At that price point, like there's not, you got to have some illusion of comfort, a little bit.
Right. Right.
Otherwise,
You
just
have
go
to be
buy,
able to at least get your girlfriend to go out in it once in a while. Right. You got to
exactly.
like she's got to be able to tolerate it.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. So that's the next one. That's what we've been working on for the last, I don't know, 24 months or something behind the scenes. And it's been very different and difficult, because like with half 11 we were very open with everything, right? And it was like our learning, and the community helped us learn, because when we started that project, like had no idea how to weld, no idea how to metal shape, right? And you'd get the meanest comments on Instagram, be like, those welds look like absolute, crap. And it's like, it's for us, it's good because we have thick skin anyway. So, but it was like, oh, okay, so we need to improve this, or we need to do this, or we need to find someone who can do this better. So yeah, it was fun learning and sharing. But the new project, we're not sharing with anybody. We're doing it more of what we do professionally as car designers, which is like keep it secret until it's kind of ready. So Yeah.
Have you been able to utilize your connections in the industry to like move things forward and like reach out to people and, get things done in the process and the manufacturing?
I mean, yes and no. I mean, I came from a very like advanced design, sort of community of network of people, I guess. And then my brother, he worked a lot on the production side, but stamping steel is very different than, boutique car manufacturing and, carbon fiber and stuff. So it's been a big deep dive. And obviously we have a lot of connections, and it's probably easier than if like you were starting from scratch. But it's still been, yeah, it's been very difficult to like figure out who to work with, the factory, supply chains, how to not get stuck, how to, yeah, it's a massive undertaking.
You got to appreciate the challenge though, right? I mean, it's one thing to build a one-off car, but it's one thing to build something over and over again that is up to the same standard that you guys have, because you guys have really high standards, we can tell. So building something that meets those standards repeatably has got to be a big challenge.
Yeah, and I mean, it was different back in the 70s, right? Like if you were a boutique car builder, like, even a Countach, to be honest, it's like it's pretty rickety for a production car, right?
Yeah.
It's not well thought out. There's some, quality issues and stuff like that. And, it's still my dream car. Like I still want an early Periscopo, but today's standard is just so damn high. Every new manufacturer that comes out is just crazy, the quality and the materials and the fit and finish. And, a lot of it's because everything's done digitally. So you can, develop it that way. And then you have companies like Singer, just like ridiculous quality on the interior and materials. How do you compete with any of these guys?
Right.
It's a big challenge.
So one of the things that comes up when I talk to people about this car, almost inevitably, is the engine, right? It seems to be the most controversial part of the car, at least when I'm talking on Discord or Instagram or talking to people about it, fielding questions like, what do you think about the engine? How do you feel about that? That thing should have a GT1 engine. And first of all, I'm like, where the dude's going to get a GT1 engine, right? I mean, that just doesn't seem reasonable. And then you think of like, well, it should have a Porsche engine. And, if the heritage of it is supposed to go all the way back to the 70s, and why does it have an LS? And like, how do you, you must field this on Instagram all the time. How do you deal with this? Why did you use an LS? How do you, kind of like bring the two together with the original concept with the newer LS and all this stuff?
Yeah, sure. So yes, it is the most controversial thing. Yes, we've talked about it so many times. We try to stay away from it, to be honest, nowadays. But yeah, I'll give you kind of the quick rundown. I mean, the reason we chose it, it's just an incredible engine. It has such a deep, horrible stigma in the US, but outside of the US, Europe, Asia, Middle East, people love LS engines. Like it's, they adore them. It's not, yeah, there's this weird like American, like, oh, it's just a junkyard engine. And like our engine isn't a junkyard engine anyway. But so there was that element to it. The second element was this, when we were developing this project, we were like at a crossroads at some point when we were making the engine choice. And we wanted to figure out air-cooled, basically, and water-cooled engine options maybe going into the future. And one of the reasons to do the LS was basically, yeah, it's water-cooled. So we could figure out how to plumb lines and get experience with that. The second reason was we are never really going to develop our own engine. And so what powers the thing is kind of mute in many ways, because it was a test of the chassis. It was a test of like the contact patch, the suspension, and like, can this sort of work? There was also an element of, when we were building like the fake history, the whole story was that Porsche would come to race in Can-Am as well. And in Can-Am, like everyone was running big block V8s, like it didn't really matter, so that was part of the story and our justification for it, let's say. And then, like, there's a big tradition and history of prototypes running engines from other manufacturers just to test, transmission, what have it. So I think a lot of people forget McLaren used Ultima chassis and small block V8s to test their powertrain, to test their transmission, to test the chassis.
Yes.
It's just a natural like evolution. And it just, it happens in the development process. So for us, yeah, it's controversial. But honestly, sticking like an air cooled 3.6 in there would have been easy. Number one. Number two, it wouldn't have given us the power that we wanted. I mean, we wanted 650 horsepower on pump gas. The only way you're doing that with a Porsche motors, twin turbo.
Yeah.
I hate turbos, so yeah.
Yeah, any power is worth that for sure. And I think people underestimate too, just like how limited you are when you use Porsche engines to like Porsche parts, Porsche tuners. It really, really limits you. The LS game is like wide open. I'm interested in like that phenomenon of the popularity of the LS around the world versus the popularity here, and where that comes from. I don't know if it's like, is it like an elitist stigma that people that like European cars or whatever think it's like is it like a class thing, or I don't understand. I get like the LS swap thing. I used to harp on about it because it would just be like the easiest thing because people would drag them out of a junkyard and put them in. Obviously, that's not what you're doing. But like, I never thought of it as like a class thing or like an elitist thing. Do you think that's part of it? Or what is the reason that people feel this way? And in Europe, they don't. And you just pontificating.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, from our experience, just, having conversations in Europe, it doesn't matter if the guy, owns a bunch of Ferraris or he, just has like a GTI that's been chipped or something. Like the love for the LS is pretty universal over there, and I don't know if it's like a forbidden fruit. Same thing in the Middle East and same thing in Asia. All the conversations we've had, they're just like, you suggest them, hey, like we could do this with a Porsche engine. They're like, no, I want the LS. I want crazy horsepower. I think the horsepower is a big alert too, right? I mean, they're used to like small engines, little buzzy things, right? And then the LS is this, it's thunder, and in engine
it's the
form.
Brute.
So
it's brute. It's brutish. It is like there might be like this romantic thing that people around the world have of like what the American standard is, which is like big, loud, brash, and don't give a fuck, right? I think there's probably a little bit of that there, and they're probably not wrong. So you did this road trip in the half 11, and I couldn't find much information about it, but I did see a reel of the half 11 driving on Hogback Ridge, which is I don't know if it's my favorite road, but it is I have a very romantic attachment to that road. Where did you go with this thing? Tell me the story of this, road trip that you did in this car.
Yeah, so we nicknamed that the last bad idea. In many ways, that was not a retirement for that car, but very much like this completes the build, this completes the process. Everyone always asks, like, when is it done? Well, it'll never be done. The car will always evolve and change, but this was like a good way to like cap it. Like, if it can do this, we can have fun and we can create these memories. Like, that's a good way to sort of end, I guess, that project, mentally and emotionally for us. So it was a very dramatic trip for us, and we did it with very little planning, which is probably the way to do something like that. The car's longest trip prior to that was 80 miles, so it was quite a leap of faith to take it. 3,200 miles.
So you legitimately hopped in this thing in LA. And you drove it 3,200 miles.
Yeah.
That's insane. It's insane. Like, what was was there a point where you're on like Highway 50 in Nevada going, what the hell am I doing? This was a mistake. I can't hear anything. My hands are numb. Like, you regretted it at any point? It just seems wild. For a guy that loves to drive across the country in a loud car, I can only imagine the experience of that.
It was, so I mean, it was pretty intense. So we did try and do a few things. So like 1 week before the trip, we finished the roof. That was the first time we'd had the roof on, and we took it to a show here, Period Correct, which is maybe, I don't know, 20 miles away. And we drove it, and it was so damn hot in the car. We were just like, oh my God, how? And it was like a cool morning, right? You get up at like 6 a.m., it's
Yeah.
cool. It's like, 65 degrees outside, and we're like overheating inside. And we're like, this is not going to work for this trip. Um, so contrary to our plan, we thought, okay, we put the car together. Let's go. We're like, okay, we have this disaster. So we pulled the entire car apart and basically started creating all these shrouds to get the radiator to stop blowing hot air inside the cabin. And so we ended up creating like I guess 3 layers of protection to get that air out. And yeah, it worked like a charm, but that wasn't part of the plan. So I mean, everything came together last minute. The car is really loud inside, but it's actually really comfortable. Well, at least for me, because we built the seating position, and you're kind of in this hammock, and as long as you can deal with, I mean, you can have a conversation inside, so it's not deafening. We also, all our cars are basically straight piped, so we have a loose, you know, what exactly is a loud car is probably very different than for other people.
Yep.
But
Yep. For sure.
there was, I guess, the only time where it was like major, like, what the hell are we doing, is we lost all 4 wheel bearings around Denver. They all went bad. And they're custom machine parts.
Oh,
And we knew something was up after day one. We didn't know what it was, but there was like a little bit of a squeak as we like came to a stop in, I think Utah was the first day. And then we're like, okay, let's keep an eye on it. And then by the end of the second day, as we were going downhill into Denver through that tunnel, we were just like, this is catastrophic. Like this could end basically the trip. Like, we're done. And yeah, so that's when you have regret, because we'd also gotten 8 people to come out with us to film, to hang out, to support. So we had a guy fly in from New York. We had the Cortettes and their entire family. They'd rented a car. There was like a lot at stake here. If this car doesn't also make it, you basically ruined 8 people's lives. So yeah, it was that was definitely stressful. That was a stressful moment.
how'd you solve the custom wheel bearing thing? Like, what did you have to do?
Yeah, so we basically pulled into Denver. We went to an AutoZone parking lot, just neighborhood. You can
I
imagine
walk
that.
into that stupid. I can imagine this. This is what happens to me, and then you can tell me what happened to you. I walk in there. I'm like, hey, I need a this for a BMW. What year is it? What year's the car? I'm like, dude, it's this part number. Can we just move past the year, make, model thing, because I'm putting this
Yeah.
thing in this other thing and it doesn't. Tell me, what was your experience like with that car at O'Reilly's or AutoZone or whatever?
Very much like that. So basically, what ended up happening is when we pulled in there, we didn't really know it was the wheel bearings. We were stopping and kind of checking, and you do the wobble test, and you see, and nothing was really conclusive. We jacked the whole car up. We pulled the front and the rear apart, and still we're like checking it. It's like, no, it still doesn't really seem like it's a wheel bearing. So we're scratching our heads for probably 3-4 hours. Like, is it the CVs? It's something in the steering, like, because there's noise coming from everywhere, and we have no idea what it is. And then basically we decide, okay, so let's take the rear apart. And then once we had released basically the hub and the CV, that's when we really saw that it was definitely the wheel bearing. But basically the whole rear suspension has to come apart. CV's out, like big job. And, we're in the middle of nowhere. We've got limited tools. It's dark. It's 2 a.m., 3 a.m. when we finally sort it out. And the rest of the guys had all gone to the hotel, obviously, to sleep. And my brother and I were like, okay, how are we going to get custom machine wheel bearings done so we can continue this? So we sleep for like 3 hours, wake up at 6 a.m. and just start calling every machine shop in the Denver area, every single one. And no one will do it because of legal or liability concerns. And we're like, you gotta be kidding me. You gotta
What
be
about
kidding
for
me.
cash? Like, not even for cash? Come
not for cash. You couldn't bribe him, couldn't do anything. And then one guy's name kept popping up. They're like, you got to call Marco. You got to call Marco. I was like, how do I call Marco? Where is Marco? So it turns out he basically was working at one of these fancy machine shops and then wanted to start his own. And he's 45 minutes north of Denver, middle of nowhere. So we call him and he's like, okay, yeah, sure. Like, I can do this. Bring everything over, and we do it. So loaded 11 into the trailer, towed it over there because it wasn't, at that point, it was basically all apart. And it was like a scene out of Breaking Bad. It's just this plain of grass. There's like no homes anywhere. And he's like, yeah, you just turn right down this driveway. You go past like 3 abandoned RVs. There's going to be like a chain link fence. You're going to open it, unlock it, then close it back so that like the cattle doesn't get out. And, we're driving down this dirt bumpy road in our trailer. And we get there and it's just this like one shed, but he's got all these crazy machine tools in there. And yeah, he got done in like 30 minutes. It took us a lot longer to put the parts in. And yeah, super nice guy. I guess he does a lot of like aerospace machining for like SpaceX and satellites. And yeah, he showed us a few things and we're like, what?
Yeah. It's a difference of people that have to rely on each other and people that don't want to have to rely on each other, I think is what it comes down to. I met a guy in Virginia and I just saw it was just this little sign. I'm always looking to like buy shit from wherever I am in these little towns. Like I want to find a thing that's not something that was made in China from somewhere. Because a lot of these like little gift shops and stuff, they always have just trinkets and just garbage. So I'm always looking for like the spot that a guy made something, whatever. And I just left Western Virginia and I went into regular Virginia. Is that what you call it? You just call it regular Virginia? So I was driving down this road in regular Virginia and I saw the little sign that just said custom knives. Just like little, like hung up with little ringlets below this guy's mailbox. Sign's all super piece of shit, rusty. Looked like it'd been painted like 75 years ago. And it's got this long driveway that goes up to this White House. And then there's like this little like cinder block building, 20 by 30 next to that. And then there's like a shed behind it or whatever. And I stopped the car. I've got both of my kids and my wife with me. I'm like, normally I would just be like, I'm going up there. Let's go check this out. But I kind of hesitated, but I said, it's okay. The house looks nice. So when I pull into this driveway and this dude comes walking out and he's got no teeth at all, none. And he's super weirdly pear-shaped in a very strange way. He's got gray hair, no teeth. And he's like, hey, how's it going? What's up? Hey, welcome. What do you want? What are you doing? And I'm like, I saw your sign that says custom knives. He's like, oh yeah, I make custom knives. And this dude is like super red. And the thing I found is that rednecks are actually really, really nice. I don't know if that's just because I'm just a regular white dude or what, but they're always super, really, really nice. Anyway, so this guy's like, yeah, well, let's come on into my shop. Come check it out. And we walk into this guy's shop, which is the cinder block building. And you go in there, and then all of a sudden, it's like, holy shit. It's like, first of all, you walk in the door, first thing you see is a gun safe that is about 8 feet tall and about 4 feet wide and about 4 feet deep. And you start looking around and you go, holy shit, this is serious. The guy's got lathes and drill presses and all this shit filling this little cinder block thing that you're kind of like walking through like this. Like you can't really get through anything very good. And he's like, hey, check out this knife. And I go, oh, this is beautiful. And it is a truly beautiful knife. The tangles all the way through. It's like this special wood. I'm like, oh, what do you get for one of these? He's like, that one's $850. It's one of the lower end ones that I sell. And I just go, I'll be honest with you, man. I'm like a $50 knife kind of guy. He's like, well, you can't afford anything here. He said, but I'll show you around. He ends up like opening up the safe, and I'm looking in the safe, and there's like the shit this guy makes is not legal. There's like suppressors like on the top shelf, like like all these suppressors and shit, and all these knives. And he pulls out this really like this big knife. It's got a huge handle on it. You could put 2 hands on it. It's probably about, 20 inches tall. It's got like naked ladies engraved in like the hilt of it, and he's like, yeah, there's like 50 diamonds in this thing. What do you think this one's worth? I'm like, I don't know, dude. I have no idea. He's like, this is a $300,000 knife. I just finished it for a client in Dubai or whatever. I'm like, oh my God. I mean, it looked amazing. He's like, oh, let me show you what I got in trade for another knife. So I'm like, okay. So we like walk out of the back of the shop and we go around the corner to see this dude's shed. And he opens up the shed and it's one of those like F550 trucks, you know, like the big, like the biggest F150 thing, the big 550.
Yeah.
He's like, yeah, I got this in trade for a knife. And I'm like, what? What are you talking about? And by this time, the guy had put his teeth in and everything. He actually made excuses. I got to go put my teeth in. You probably can't understand what I'm saying. Anyway, it's just cool how like these dudes that just make shit. Like, it's just like the guy that makes shit in the middle of nowhere, Colorado. These dudes just, he had like no social media presence. He didn't really have a website. But somehow this dude is like making shit for people in his little cinder block shed at like the toppest level that is humanly possible to make the knife and suppressors for all his buddies or whatever it is what he's doing. It was all top level. Yeah. There's your guy custom machining you wheel bearings for your what did this guy think of the car? First of all, what did he say? Was he just like what?
He wasn't a car guy at all. Like, I think he was just kind of like, and he's just like, what? You're driving this to like New York? This is terrifying. Like, he was just scared of it. And then we started it and he was just like, it's too loud. No, just no.
Really? Just wasn't for him, huh?
Yeah. Not for him at all. No.
The rest of the trip went pretty good then. It was like smooth sailing. I'm glad you had a problem, dude. I'm glad you had a problem. Because if you would have had that trip and it would have went fine, I think it would have been a little anticlimactic for you. I'm glad it got fucked up a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, we had more problems with the front wheel bearings after that, which was its own unique thing. But and then the car has no gas gauge, so we ran out of fuel a number of times. And but you know, those are all small things. It's, you know, I think like what your story is about the knife guy, it's like you never know what you'll discover unless you just go drive, right? And that's the beauty of it. Like, we had no plans. We're just going to make it as far as we can today. Of course, we stopped and filmed. But the idea was just, let's just go discover. Let's find these cool little gems, you know? And, you know, you have this preconceived notion of what like the middle of America is. Like, when you live on the coasts, you know, I'm not going to like, for sure, there's this like a stigma, right? And we found like our idea of it was completely shattered. We would come into these small little towns, and in Ellsworth, for example, the mayor, the deputy mayor, they all came out, shook hands with us. They said, welcome. We're so excited that you're here. Like, do you want to do a burnout down the middle of the, you know, downtown? Like, please fly your drone. You know, it was incredible. And that just doesn't happen, you know, in California. Like, people just get mad at you when you drive a loud car or something. So, it was very cool. It was very cool to discover that side of the U.S. and culture and people, you know?
Yeah, I love small town America. It's special. All the places have like a common feel, but they're all unique. Most people are extremely kind. And I don't think it's the extremely kind in the coastal way where someone's trying to get something from you if you're extremely kind. It's a genuine, I'm never going to see this person again, but I'm still going to do everything I can to help them kind. It's really special.
Yeah, I mean, totally agree. Yeah, I mean, the little town, they bought us coffee. Like, we went into the coffee store and someone had already paid for everything we were going to get. It's just insane. It's like, guys, so cool. Cool.
It's great. So I have one more question on Half 11, and then I want to talk about design a little bit, because you have a really unique perspective on design. Would you ever build, and this is a question from one of the people that are on Overcrest on Instagram. They submitted this question. Okay. Would you ever build an electric Half 11?
So interestingly enough, 60% of the people that contact us about a car or building a car want electric. So to me, that's mind-blowingly strange, because the whole project and ethos of that is very much about the noise and the thunder of racing and, you know, the tribute to that era. Would we make an electric Half 11? Only if we could do it the right way. In my design career, obviously, I don't know if most people may not know, but my brother and I were both OEM car designers, and we've been designing effectively electric cars since 2013. I think the last combustion car I worked on would have been around 13 or 14. So basically, we've been designing electric cars. We kind of know what the limitations are. There's a lot of, technology that's holding it back for what I think the enthusiast wants, which is a lightweight FEM platform, right? Electric kills that. So until there are ways to do it, if we could do it the right way to where it wouldn't mimic a gas experience, right? You can't ask a yacht or a sailboat to mimic what a motorboat does, right? You don't buy a cigarette, speedboat and then compare it to a yacht. Like those are two very different things, two very different experiences. I've driven a few like converted old cars and to EV. And what's so cool is like you can hear the leaves rustling underneath your tires. You can hear like little pebbles you can hear the birds chirping. So it's a very different canyon ride than it is in, a loud snarling, air-cooled, RSR or something. I think there's room for those two experiences separately, two different buyers, two different experiences. And like they shouldn't mimic each other. I think still right now, Rimac, they're Lotus, they're all trying to create the combustion experience with a different technology. And to me, that's just the wrong approach. But
are they scared? Is that born out of fear of taking the leap?
Yeah, I mean, with EVs in general right now, it's just huge fear. It's so much money, R&D, everything, and you don't want to like upend your legacy or whatever you've built. Be interested to see what the next Porsche hypercar, what they do. Obviously, they've teased something. It would be interesting to see what that next evolution is of these sort of legacy brands. Ferrari's obviously working on one too. So, what do they do? How do they approach the problem? It'd be, for me, of great interest, at least.
Do you know the allegory of the cave from Plato? Do you know that one?
Allegory of the cave. Are you trying to make me look dumb, Chris?
No.
Why are you doing this?
This is like, no. So there's like the allegory of the cave is basically you have like a bunch of people in a cave and they've never left the cave, right? They only know what's in the cave. So they live in the cave. They consume their entire life. All the relationships are in the cave. And they only know what's in the cave. And then someone escapes the cave and they crawl out of the cave and they see the whole world, right? And then their responsibility then is to go back into the cave and try to tell all the people in the cave why they should leave and tell them about the experiences outside the cave. And I feel like that's what car design is right now. I feel like everything right now, we're all still stuck in this fucking cave. And we haven't had a person leave the cave to come back in to tell everybody what's next, what we're missing out on. I feel like we're just stuck in this rut of this fear of we can't try anything new. People won't buy it. People still want combustion engines. We can't get over this hump. You're talking about like Lotus doing it and whatever. Yep. This fear where we just we can't move forward. We can't get into this point where the cars that we're designing are the norm. Like this is a car. Like if we would have went back to like 1995 and talked about car design, we would have just been like, these are the cars that are being designed. Every car, and I'm very inexperienced with this. You can tell me if I'm wrong with car design and design in general. But I feel like right now we're at a point where everything is like designed for a place that we aren't. Like it's like, this is the future. We're designing this. This is what the future is going to be like. Check this out. This is the new thing. But it never really feels new and fresh. It just feels like different shades of what we already had. And it just feels like we're stuck in this cave where nobody will bring us the light. No one is enlightening the automotive industry right now and helping push things forward. We're just spinning our wheels and we're just stuck.
Yes. I mean, I can certainly understand the sentiment. I can assure you all the brands are pushing like crazy internally, but there is obviously a lot of resistance. And part of it is just the electrification push that's been put on the brands, whether it's, whether you blame the government or who you blame. It's so incredibly costly. When I worked at GM, I remember them, basically putting aside $110 billion in R&D to move to electric, right? And it's an insane amount of money for what? And they're basically getting rid of all the cars that make them money now investing $110 billion for something that's completely unproven. And of course there's risk, right? And of course there's a reluctance to do anything new. And of course you want to basically take all the engineering you've already done and piggyback that so you don't spend any money on engineering. And that's, yeah. So where we're at is basically electric cars that are, hugely compromised. They're not clean sheet. They're based on like you even have to update your factories, and no one has that kind of money. Like nobody does. And that's why in many ways, like the Chinese electric car industry is like just so far ahead at this point. It's a good thing those tariffs are in place, because if those cars came over here, no contest, basically.
Well, they started out clean sheet, right? They're just new car companies.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
They don't have billions of dollars of aging infrastructure that has value. Right. I mean, these companies, automotive companies, probably have loans out on their assets to like do stuff. Like all this stuff and all the finances of all this is insane.
Yeah. And I mean, there are some people that are pushing, right? Like, love it or hate it, I think the Cybertruck is one of the best things that happened to car design, because I'm going to get flamed for it, but it's like, I don't like the execution of it, but I like the idea of it. I like the thing that it's just pushing so far past, like, it just doesn't give a crap. It just doesn't care, And part of it is that it doesn't care about humanity. I mean, I saw one on the road, it looks so cool, but it's so big. Like, I can't imagine getting into a crash with one or hitting a pedestrian with one or anything. It's just not a human product. But goddamn, it looks cool. It looks like a UFO on the freeway amongst all the other, bubbles. I give them credit for that. That's, I would never buy one. I don't like it as a product, but God, it did good for like car design.
Someone went out of the bubble. Someone left the cave. That's like that car left the cave and came back. And the people are rejecting it for whatever reasons. Everybody has the reasons for not liking the Cybertruck. I feel like a lot of them are politically driven. And they're very tribal. People are very tribal with things, and because it's got a political association with it, with Elon and X, and of course the green movement, all these different things. There's all these different variables that are pushing and pulling on that. I feel like if we could strip all of that away and look at the Cybertruck as like an execution of exploration of where things could be. I think it's still like a concept vehicle that people are able to buy, which just seems crazy to me, because you always go to the auto show and you're like, wow, that thing looks really freaking interesting, and then in the back of your head that you're never ever going to get that. It's always going to be some diluted, watered down, like half lemonade, half piss version of what you're looking at. And it's kind of cool to see that thing exist, almost looking exactly like it did when they revealed it in the first place.
Yeah, exactly. And I think there's another thing to remember, like with EVs, is how many years did it take for combustion engine to become like an enthusiast product, right? Even the V8. It took time for that to sort of evolve and create what we now take for granted as like performance culture or aftermarket culture or whatever. That wasn't really around at the start of the combustion engine. And so I think a lot of people get upset, EVs, they can only go fast in a straight line. Yes, right now, but give it, I think we're reaching that point. It's probably been around 20 years. Mainstream electric cars have been around, sort of Tesla. I think give it another 10 years and we'll see like a new form of electric performance and electric enthusiast cars coming to market. You just got to give it time. You can't like just expect that culture to exist. Like it needs to be created by a community. There's so many Tesla tuners already now. It's coming. So.
Yeah, I'm excited for like I feel like these, I guess you would say, clean sheet companies. I wonder if we're going to have like this coach building renaissance, right? Where someone designs, and I thought it was coming. I felt like these skateboard designs were coming, where people were going to be able to buy the skateboard design and then build a car on top of it for whatever. And we would get that back in the day, like back in the 20s, right? Some dude would create like the wooden frame of the car and then, here it is. This is my, whatever the fuck it is, 1928, whatever the fuck.
Yeah.
And now I feel like that shouldn't be too hard to do. Is that coming, do you think?
Oh gosh, I mean, at the very origin of Oilstainlab is that coach building thing, and we are looking at ways to bring that back and figure that all out. There's just so much legal framework these days that it is very difficult. I mean, in many ways, it kind of does exist. I mean, what Singer does is kind of coach building, right? They are taking an older car and they're swapping it, or what Gunther does. A lot of these Restomod companies are playing into that because the legal framework allows for you to modify these cars without, basically crazy cost. When you take into like crash testing and stuff, until there's laws and regulations that allow for small manufacturers to exist, you can't really do that. You can, of course, buy like a Mercedes S-Class, take everything off of it, make your own custom S-Class body. You can,
Yep.
but you can't just buy a skateboard chassis, right? And legally, that's what's kind of holding that back, sadly.
It's a bummer because I think that would be awesome. Like, who doesn't want to build a giant RC car? Like,
I agree with you.
Plastic body on the top. It'd be so dope. That's like dreams, man. If I could imagine, if you would have told me when I was like 12 years old, hey, they're going to be like electric cars someday, I would have been like, RC car, I want one. I want this. I want a Turbo Trax Tyco, but big. Can we do that? As a little boy, that's what I would have imagined. And I hope we get there.
I mean, I don't see why not. I mean, honestly, it's just like you're allowed to ride a motorcycle in traffic. Everyone knows that if you crash or something, like there's no crash test circles. So like, why not enable people to have four-wheeled motorcycles, basically? Then you can coach build, just sign a waiver that says, yes, I know that if I crash, something bad may happen to me.
I think the difference though is like a motorcycle is like you're injuring yourself, whereas a car, you're almost responsible for other people on the road at some point. It's just a bigger object that you're throwing around.
I disagree.
So how has the evolution of Oilstainlab like changed how you've been perceived by your clients and the people you work with? Have you been, you've worked with Hyundai, Chevy, and the Corvette electrification and all this stuff. When you go into meetings with this dudes, they talk about it. Has it influenced what they think of you? Has there been any of the DNA of what you guys have created? Has it kind of like seeped into anything?
I mean, we've kind of wound down, I guess, the design consultancy portion of it over the last 24 months because we've been focused on kind of the new car. I think when that car comes out, people will definitely look at us very differently. But for now, that's secret. So effectively, no one's really seen that or knows about it. And then, of course, anyone who knows about our car design past, they haven't really changed their opinion whether Half 11 prototype is finished or not finished. So we're in a weird. We've been very quiet. I will say that. So
it's hard. Like
nothing's really changed.
Media today, it's got to be hard to stay quiet because you guys could be bringing people along for the ride. You could be like, hey, here's our design process, and people would love it. They'd love to see that process. And I think it would be a cool way to reveal the car. But at the same time, probably not the most professional way to do it, But it's got to be difficult not to share. That's a tough secret to keep, man.
Yeah, I think, it's like once it evolves past my brother and I, and there's other people on board, and there's NDAs, and there's like manufacturers and partners, and then it's like it's not my choice anymore, and in many ways it's a little bit sad that it becomes, because we started Oilstainlab to escape the corporate world, and as you become bigger, you start to go like, oh, I see, that's why GM did it that way. It starts to make sense a little bit. We'll probably share everything when we can. The problem really with sharing it is, we're very small, like tiny team, tiny budget. And what we're aiming for is so much. It's so like really in many ways, like unbelievable, even to us. And so you don't want to overpromise and then underdeliver in many ways. So we'll probably share once we're 100% confident that we could actually achieve what we set out to achieve 24 months ago. And, it takes money, it takes time, it takes people.
Yeah, what's the biggest thing in your way from feeling that way right now?
I I mean, it always comes down to just good luck and money, right? Basically. So
That's just
we come from
life, man.
humble beginnings, and yeah, starting your own car company takes a lot of money. So yeah, I'm not gonna, yeah, we're not begging or for charity or anything, but
That's the
when you
reality
see
of it.
companies like, yeah, I mean, when you see a company like, for example, Gordon Murray, and the countless hundreds of millions of dollars that they have at their disposal, you're just like, you get a little jealous, you're just like, imagine what I can do,
Yeah,
you know, but
absolutely.
he's earned it.
Yeah, over the years for sure. Dude, thanks for coming to hang out with me, man. It was a good time. I hope you enjoyed it, and I look forward to seeing you probably in April when I come out to visit for Air Water.
Yeah. And is your rally after or before?
Rally's after. The rally is in May.
Okay.
So the rally is like the third week of May.
I'm writing my essay.
You got till Friday. And
Yeah,
you'll be all
I
set.
got it.
Actually, by the time this comes out, the applications will be closed. So if you're if you're thinking you can go apply, it's too late. You procrastinated. Shame on you.
Exactly.
All right, dude. We'll
No,
look
thanks for
forward to
having
seeing
me.
you again.
Yeah, thanks, man. Appreciate it.